Just past the registration table where you walked in, there are both men's and women's bathrooms on this floor now. Welcome to TA, and we're glad you're here. Bob, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Bill. And thanks everybody for coming tonight. This is great to see everybody who has an interest in community solar. I did want to thank TA for letting us use the facility. I wanted also to thank the Thetford Energy Committee. If everybody on the Thetford Energy Committee would please stand up. There's I think 7 or so folks. Come on, don't be shy. Not stand up. You're going to get in trouble for the next meeting. And the Thetford Select Board has been very supportive of our working towards doing some community solar projects. There's another energy community person watching, Chris. And a couple other folks I wanted to thank. Vermont Law School, Samantha Mashler has been helping the town look at some different models and documents that might help us in terms of putting together a community solar project. I want to thank all of the contractors who came tonight, and they'll be introducing themselves. And a number of them have done some work in town already and or are going to be doing some projects in town. So it's great to have all of them here. I also wanted to point out a couple of folks in particular. Troy McBride with Norwich Technologies, Ralph Mimo with Green Lantern Group, and Dory Wolfe have also been helpful in consulting with us in terms of what we might think about in developing a community solar project in town. So I think the other intro stuff I have to say I can do when I get into my presentation here. A couple of things. As we talk tonight, I also wanted to thank Bob Farnham, Bob the green guy. Bob is infamous or famous for filming a lot of energy efficiency and renewable energy programs throughout the state, and then putting them up on the internet so people who aren't able to come tonight can watch them. So we'll send the link to everybody who came tonight to this, to where you can get this and see this, and then you can share it with your friends. So if you know folks who might be interested who weren't able to make it tonight, they'll be able to access it. Also related to that is this community solar guide that we handed out. There's a few things in here. I'll just quickly let you know what's in here. It talks at the beginning, there's an introduction with, if you didn't get a chance to register at the front table, including expressing possibly your interest in being part of the community solar thing here and how much energy you use, there's a link here that you can go to do that. Or a number and contact information for Mike Key, so you can contact him to do that. Then there are a bunch of things you might want to consider if you're thinking about doing a group net metered solar project, either one of the communities or one that is privately run by one of these developers. So those are some questions that you might consider when you're talking with contractors about joining into a net meter program. And a lot of these questions we also pose to the contractors to give you an idea of how their different programs work. And so their responses are then laid out in the rest of this guide. This guide is downloadable from the Thetford Energy Committee's webpage on the town website. And again, we will email you that link. If you want to keep a hard copy, feel free to do that. If you don't think you'll need it, because we're going to send you the downloadable link, if you could just drop that back to the registration table at the end, then we'll pass it on to other people who maybe don't have internet connection. Any questions so far? So I'm going to do a really quick kind of 101 introduction to group net metering and community solar. And then each of the contractors will come up and do a quick 4-minute introduction of themselves and their businesses and what kinds of things, services they can offer. And then we'll have a facilitated question and answer discussion session among everyone. I think probably, especially during the 101 and certainly during their presentations, just let us go and get through it all, and we'll take questions afterwards. And if you do speak up, please try to speak up loudly so that the folks who are filming the session tonight will be able to hear you. Okay? Any other questions? Any questions? All right. This works. Okay, so we have called you all here today to educate you about community solar and what it is and how it works. Talk about some various options, including the town is looking at developing a couple of community solar projects that would provide solar, provide power for the municipality itself, as well as any residents that might want to become part of that project. And part of that process is the survey that's at the registration table. We're trying to get a sense of who's interested and how much power they use, so we know how big a project or projects to build. We're pretty excited about the progress we made in promoting solar last year. Many of you may know, actually, how many people here in the audience already have solar on your homes? Good, good. So you're either looking at maybe adding more or learning more, so you can let friends and neighbors know about it, I guess. Last year we participated in the Solarize program, and Catamount Solar, represented here tonight, Doc and Kevin, thank you, helped install I don't know if it's 42 through the Solarize or if that included some others, including some from Solaflect. I think that might be the total of both, or was it?
We were around 42.
So then there were another 10 or so that were done by Solaflect and some other contractors. So we pretty much tripled the amount of solar power in town in 1 year last year through the Solarize initiative. So we're very excited. And then Norwich Technologies built a 141 kilowatt array over at the Thetford Elementary School, which with the adder money, which we'll explain a little bit, provides all of the costs that they were putting into power for the school pretty much. So why is solar? Why is it a good time to go solar now? So the prices, as you probably know, of solar have been coming down drastically in the past few years. And that in itself is making it a good time to buy. In addition, there's a 30% federal tax credit. If you buy your solar before the end of 2016, so the end of next year, there's a 30% federal tax credit that you can claim for that project. But that goes away at the end of next year. So there's really going to be a big push on over the next year and a half for people to go solar. Group net metered arrays, and I'll explain what that is. Excuse me, net metered production, that's Green Mountain Power. Net metered production has an adder. So for every kilowatt of power that a system provides, Green Mountain Power actually pays you an excess beyond the deducting the amount of power from your bill. They give you an extra, for a small system, 5.3 cents per kilowatt hour generated, and for a larger system, 4.3 cents per kilowatts. So kilowatt hours generated. So those are really strong financial incentives to make this a good time to buy. And typical savings are 10% or more for going solar these days. One of the things you want to consider if you're going solar is how much solar to buy. Green Mountain Power won't compensate you for any energy that you provide above and beyond what you use. So I'll go into in a minute what net metering is, but basically you want to size your system to the amount that you use, and actually just a little bit less than that because you're getting the solar adder on as well. And the contractors that you work with will help you figure that out and size it to what your needs are. Average residential systems are about 5 kilowatts, but again, it really depends on how much you use and also what your budget is. You don't have to cover all of your usage in most cases. You can, cover maybe half of what you use, or, how much ever you want to, depending upon how much money you have to get into the game, basically. Now that, again, may vary depending upon what kind of a project you get into, and again, the contractors will be describing their different services. Another thing you might want to think about is incorporating efficiency measures. If you haven't already done that, usually efficiency is cheaper than renewables. So if you can make sure that you do all your efficiency work, either do it first, or when you size your system and you know you're going to be doing some efficiency measures, take that into account so you can reduce the amount that you want to generate accordingly. But also think on the other direction too. There are a lot of new things. It used to be 10, 15, 20 years ago, we were trying to get away from electric as much as possible because electric generation was coming from really dirty sources. But now we're trying to get most of our electricity from renewables, hence all these contractors here tonight. And so now we're starting to drive people back to getting some things like heat pumps and even electric vehicles from electricity. So if actually Surge is going to be doing a workshop at the Monshire on May 6th on heat pumps, air source heat pumps and heat pump water heaters, which are very efficient ways to heat your home and heat hot water. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go to that workshop. But again, when you're sizing your system, you also might want to think about down the road, am I going to want to do a heat pump, an electric vehicle, or other electrical things that might actually make you want to get a little more power than you might need right now. So what is net metering? Net metering allows customers to offset power costs by connecting custom-owned renewable generators to the utility grid. So you've got the solar panels that go into an inverter, and they go to the meter, and they go to Green Mountain Power, basically. You may use some of the power that you're generating at any given time, but largely a lot of the power you're going producing goes right onto the grid. And then you use power from the grid. And so what Green Mountain Power does is they keep track of how much power you produce and how much you use in a month, and then they subtract how much you're producing from how much you're using, and that's called net metering, and you'll pay the difference, okay? So if you generated 200 kilowatts and you used 300 kilowatts, you're gonna pay for 100 kilowatt hours of power that month. And what typically happens is in the summer, you'll produce more than you actually use. And so Green Mountain Power keeps a tab of that, and they'll keep increasing your accumulated overusage during the summer, and then during the winter, when you don't make as much, they'll deduct from that accumulated tab, and you can use off from that throughout the winter. If at the end of the year, there's still excess that you generated last June and you haven't used up by the next June, that excess will go to Green Mountain Power and you don't get compensated for it. So that's why you want to size your system to what you're using. Is that clear? Are we clear on that? Okay. So group net metering is the same as net metering, except you can do it in a group. So the really cool thing about this is, what it means is that a lot of homeowners, and this is what we're trying to do here is a group net metered community array. A lot of homeowners might not have a good site for doing solar on their house or on their property, and so what group net metering allows you to do is find the ideal place to put a large array, and you can buy into that array or lease into that array and get your electricity from that array just like it was coming from an array on your house. And then Green Mountain Power will keep tabs on how much power is produced by that large array. They'll know what percentage of that large array you own, and they will do the same net metering calculations that they would do with a single home net metering system. Okay? So there are advantages of economies of scale by building a single large system. It's often cheaper than doing a number of smaller ones. Again, if you don't have a good place to build, it allows you to join in solar even if you don't have a good situation. So, is group net metering for you? I mean, if you want to go solar and you don't have a good solar site, it might be a good solution for you. If you don't want solar on your property for one reason, you don't have either proper roof orientation or ground mounted array, it might be a good option for you. Okay, now renewable energy credits. Yes, question?
Before you go further, you can also participate if you're a renter and you don't own your property.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, thank you, Brett. Renewable energy credits. So renewable power produces two distinct items that are valued. One, and that have a monetary value on them. One is the electricity. That's pretty obvious. The other is the renewable attributes. This is a little harder to understand, but renewable power is considered to have a premium price over electricity generated by fossil fuels because you're getting power that's clean and it's not destroying the environment, okay? And they actually put a price on that, and they call it renewable energy credits. And so, first of all, you should just be aware that there are these two things that come when you create renewable power. And if the physical electricity and the associated renewable energy credits are sold separately to different buyers, the electricity can know that you're keeping for your house or your school or whatever can no longer be considered renewable. Now this is maybe even a little harder to understand, but the way the federal laws, right, are written, the renewable credits, the renewable attributes of a project, if you sell the RECs, those renewable attributes go with the RECs. So you can't claim to have a renewable project even if you're getting your power from a renewable source, if you sold the RECs. So, you have to decide either if you're building a project your own or buying into a project, do you want to keep the RECs or not? The RECs, if you keep the RECs, it enables you to claim that you're getting your power from a renewable source, but the RECs have financial value, and some people may see value in selling the RECs, okay? And I know we have contractors that come in different places on this up here, but it's just something for each of you to think about as you, go forward getting into a project, okay? Participation options, so you're here because you want to participate one way or another. So there are different ways you could participate. You might lease into a project, you might buy into a project and own it or part of it, or you might even host a project. some people might have a couple of acres that they would, Gene, I saw something fall from a pocket, I don't know if it's important. Some people might have a couple of acres that they would be willing to let be used to develop one of these community arrays or a group net metered array. So you might consider hosting a site as well. So what are some of the differences between leasing and owning? And again, you know, the various companies have different ways you can get into them. Often with a leasing situation, there's not any money required up front. Maybe more flexible, easy to get in and out. Often the long-term savings might be a little lower because you're not owning the system, you're leasing it. So sometimes the savings on owning might be a little higher. Typically it doesn't include the 30% federal tax credit because that goes to the system owner. And some of the questions, or one thing you might want to consider if you were getting into a lease system is there an option to buy at some point down the road? And if so, when and what are the terms, that kind of thing. Owning might be greater lifetime savings, might be no monthly payments, it might be some kind of a, you know, you buy it all up front or whatever. And again, different companies have different options, and you'd have to figure out what that was going to be. Different terms of ownership. Important to know, you know, what you're going to own, how much it is. Is it just the array itself, or what is it that you're actually owning? And does it include the 30% federal tax credit? Again, if you look at some of those questions in the front of the handout, it'll help you think about some of the different issues. Hosting considerations, what are you going to get out of it? You know, if you're hosting it on your property, are you going to get some lease payment for the land? Are you going to get decreased electric usage on your electric bill? Is it going to need fencing? Is it going to have any effect on your property value? Those are some things you might want to consider when you're, if you're looking at hosting a site. Some other things to consider, again, in the handout, operation, maintenance, warranty, and insurance. How are all those dealt with? What happens with the system at the end of its life? You know, if it's a group system and you own a 5 kilowatts of a group system, what's going to happen with that in 20, 25 years? Who's responsible for taking care of that? What happens if you move out of the utility district? So that's one interesting thing I didn't mention is, so we're thinking about building a system here, and in the ideal world, we'd love to have those systems be taken up by as many Thetford residents as possible. But if we built more than could be used by Thetford residents, or we can't find enough Thetford residents to build that, or to buy into that, actually anybody in Green Mountain Power territory could join into that system. Basically, as long as you're in the same utility area as the system is built, you can join into it. But if you move out of that utility area, you know, what's going to happen to your ownership in that part, that system? And how does the billing work? So that's pretty much it, just for an overall introduction. We are hoping to get participation in the Thetford systems. If you have interest, please make sure you fill out that survey. If you didn't know how much energy you use, either get back and make sure that we have all of that. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to go over before we move on to the next thing here. Actually, I'm going to have as the contractors are up here next, why don't we all come up to the table, and I'll just take if there are any couple of quick questions on this part. So the question was, and somebody on the panel might be able to help me with this. The credit that is built up with Green Mountain Power as you build up more hours over the summer, is that in hours or in dollars? Yeah.
So that credit's going to build up in dollars on your bill. So you're going to see that credit go up during the summer when the days are longer and you're producing more power. And then as you go into the winter and your panels aren't producing as much because the days are shorter and there's not as much sunlight, you're going to eat into that credit.
But it's in dollars on your bill.
Which is also, if I may, the utility of the solar adder. So I believe, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but the current retail price of electricity is 12 cents per kilowatt hour each. Is that right?
Depends on what utility.
Okay.
All with the adder out and
Exactly, but essentially, so that's really where the utility of the adder is coming in. That you're selling your electricity back at a higher rate than you're purchasing it.
Okay.
I want to say 150 kW solar array. If I buy 5 kW of that and connect that to my GMP panel, is that subject to the 5.3 cent adder or the 4.3 cent adder? Is it the size of the array or the size of my share that dictates that?
sadly, it's the size of the whole array.
So let me repeat that, sorry. So the question was, if you buy like 5 kilowatts of a large array, you remember on there the adder was different for size arrays, 15 kilowatts or larger or smaller. If you buy 5 kilowatts of a large array, do you get the larger adder for the smaller amount of power you're buying or the smaller adder for the larger system? And the answer was you get the smaller adder because you're buying into a large system.
There's
Yeah.
a premise here that there's not seasonal pricing. How is that?
Well, maybe I think my back again, but 5 years into this, we found that the easiest thing to do is to forget about kilowatts, except the size of the system, and forget about kilowatt hours, and just look at the dollars. So you right now have an electric bill that has a certain amount of dollars. You can buy into a community solar project that will generate as many dollars as you're paying for your electric bill. And it's very easy then to compare and see what you need. And the other thing to keep in mind is the best thing, the most important question is, how many dollars of earning from my solar field am I getting for how many dollars of investment? Then if you look at that equation, you can compare all of us across the board and you can get an actual number that will tell you what you're getting for what you're paying.
Okay, I think what I'm going to do is move into the next section now, and I'm sure more questions will come out as the contractors are talking. A couple of quick things, just to give these folks a sense here. How many people are possibly interested in joining into some kind of a group net meter, community array, or whatever, getting some power? Okay. Anybody interested in possibly hosting an array, having some land that you might be able to buy something? Okay, it's good. So you might want to, everybody is going to have different things to think about, but I just wanted to give them a sense of what you're all thinking. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike Keys. Mike's on the Thetford Energy Committee. He's going to moderate the panel and give a little direction as to what's going to happen now. I do have the questions. Okay, thanks, Bob.
Well, welcome everyone. As you saw, we just finished the presentation part of the slideshow. That is available at the town website, thetfordvermont.us website. So if you want to see the slides again, they're there. The handout's also there. And this was to give you the response to kind of the 101. So what we wanted to do now was move to a section where you could hear briefly from each of the people here about what they do and their perspective and what they might be able to offer, a brief 4 or 5 minutes from each person. And then a chance to ask some kind of general questions that you think might help all of us learn more. Following that, we'll break up and head out into the auditorium where we can get more cookies and you can have individual conversations with people about things that might be specific to you, to your needs. How does that sound, everybody? All right, well, hearing no complaints, then should we just do with one side to the other introductions and then a little bit about what your perspective or what you're offering on this topic.
Sure. So am I getting my 4 minutes now, or are we
This
going?
is
Okay.
your 4 minutes, Kevin.
So I'm Kevin Mcallister. I'm one of the founding members of Catamount Solar. We're a full-service design-build solar installation company based in Randolph, Vermont. We were formed in 2011 by a group of 3 very well-experienced solar professionals who had worked upwards of 10 to 15 years each at Grow Solar, myself, Northern Power, Grow Solar. And we formed our company as a community, as a workers co-op, workers cooperative, thinking that just after the near collapse of our economic system, we needed to look at new ways of doing business. And a workers cooperative is a structure that creates a democratic workplace where all the workers are vested in either ownership stake in the company or have a path to become an owner. So it promotes both economic fairness as well as democratic decision-making within the company. The reason I relate that is that our take on community solar is maybe a little bit different from a lot of the other folks at the table, in that we think Vermonters are very clever and resourceful people, and in a lot of cases, these groups are going to be able to be self-formed and self-organized and self-managed cooperatively. And we want to help you do that. We're not, by nature, we're designers, installers, we're not developers. So we're not running around looking for land to put these on. But we think there are, and our experience shows recently, there are groups in communities that are well-respected members of the community. They can look around, form groups that are interested in doing this together. Some member of the group probably has some land that they are willing to donate. The Vermont Law School, who will also speak at the end of the table, has just put out a very informative and useful guide for how these groups can put these groups together and how it all works. And we want to help at that level. And the advantages, I think, of doing it that way are one, you have self-management. You're going to govern and manage your group together. There's a sense that you're all in it together, and there's going to be, you know that it's going to continue going because you're managing it yourself rather than wondering what's going to happen 10, 15 years down the line. You also are going to be in control of the RECs. You own the system. It's going to be yours. You decide to keep them. It's our philosophy that RECs should not be sold, that should retain the renewable attributes where they are generated. So that's our perspective. Feel free to come and talk to us more in the lobby, and hopefully we'll be working with some of these groups in the near future. Thanks.
My name is Ralph Maima. It's nice to see everyone here tonight. I'm based in Brattleboro and represent Green Lantern in the southern counties. I spend most of my time in Windsor, Windham, and Bennington counties, and then just a bit over the line into Rutland and Orange. Green Lantern is a Vermont-based and completely Vermont-focused developer, in contrast to what we just heard described. Our role is to bring together the technical expertise, the construction contractors, the capital, the entire permitting process, and basically act as the hub with many different spokes that are required to bring a medium to large scale solar project into being. One thing I want to emphasize very, very clearly is that we specialize in solar arrays that now tend to run from 150 kilowatts to 500 kilowatts. And they are almost exclusively for towns, schools, hospitals, ski areas, manufacturing companies, large nonprofits, colleges. So our customer, you could say, is typically the institutional customer, whether they're private sector, public sector, or nonprofit. We do not do smaller scale systems. We don't have retail customers in terms of individual homeowners, for example. I have been on board for about a year, and during that time, some of the projects that I've worked on, just to give you some examples, would be a 500 kilowatt array for Brattleboro Memorial Hospital that is actually physically going to be located in North Springfield. A smaller allocation, and this is where we get into what group net metering is all about. You don't want to have more group net metering capacity allocated to you, whether you're an individual or an organization, than you have an appetite for because of your bill. This gets back to what Bob was talking about earlier in terms of you don't want production beyond your utilization of credits because you end up with a non-redeemable quantity. So, but you can sign up for less than, you know, if you're a school district, for example, or a smaller town, you can sign up for a slice of a larger array. And so, an example of that would be an array that we actually have a certificate of public good and are just about to finalize the allocation of the financing for a 500 kilowatt array in Pittsford. And I can tell you that about half of the net metering credits from that array will go to Grace Cottage Hospital in Townsend. A couple of other projects that were already really well along before I came on board were group net metering agreements with the town of Putney and the town of Brattleboro. They are together sharing an array that's located in Westminster. And we are no longer part of that. We actually sold our share of that array to someone else. But it gives you a sense of how virtual group net metering works around the state. As long as you as we often call power purchase partners, customers, or off-takers, as long as you're in the same utility territory as the power plant that you're enjoying net metering credits from, that's fine, and it could be half the state away. So if you are on a select board, a member of a planning commission, a regional commission, if you're on a school board, if you're on the board of a hospital, for example, or a clinic, I would be especially interested in talking with you because that's the focus of our business. And I mentioned some southern examples, but we do operate all around the state. We have about 10 megawatts of total installed capacity or capacity that's been contracted that is in development currently. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
And I'm sorry, I neglected to say I'm supposed to keep time, so I will.
All right.
And I'll give you a 1 minute.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. I mentioned that as well. But promise. So, I mean, we just heard about two different approaches, certainly, and we're going to hear about more. So it's this is a good introduction for us.
A little show and tell.
Okay. So yeah, with Bob's our timekeeper, we'll move along so everyone can get through. We do have time for questions before we can.
Hello everyone, I'm Bruce General, and I live in Norwich, just down the road. And together with my brother and his wife, we run Green Mountain Community Solar. And our tagline is your panels, your savings, our land. We have put in our first community solar project in Groton, which is up near St. Jay. That project went in last fall. We have 13 residences, one bank, and one nonprofit who all participate in having their panels at this farm, getting savings on their GFP bill, and they don't have any panels at the house or the business, or all at our farm. This year we're planning on 2 more projects. One is going to go up in Chester. We're scheduled to put that in the May-June timeframe. The other one is going to go up in Groton. That's going to go up in July. We're selling panels in those projects right now. And the panels there, we will hope to have about 15 residences, another bank, another nonprofit. So for those of you who are interested in getting right now in community solar, let me give you an example. If you want to save $600 a year, that's about $50 a month on your GMP bill. You can choose your level, but this is an example. You need 9 panels in one of our farms. That would cost you $6,300. You get back $18,000 over 30 years. Now it's about a 2.5 times return on your investment. Pays back in about 10 years. And it gives you about 12% after tax on your money. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not getting 12% on my money right now. So it's a good deal financially as well as good deals. So for those of you who are interested, now, I've got some materials. Oops. All printed out, you can take with you, that describes exactly how the arrangement would work. On our website, we have a little calculator that you can plug in your GMP bill and find out just how many panels you need. We'd love to have you guys right here in Thetford be part of one of these projects this summer. Thank you.
Can we do questions at the end? If that's possible? All right, thanks. Unless it's something to clarify that.
Yeah, does that $6,300 cost include the federal tax credit?
Thank you. I forgot to mention that. That assumes you have taken federal tax credit.
Thank you.
What was that?
Oh, sorry, the question was the $6,300, was that the cost before or after the 30% federal tax credit? And then $6,300 would be your cost assuming you can take the 30%. So that's your cost after you get your money back from the government, from the federal government. Thanks.
Well, you've entered the Norwich section here with us three. I'm Troy McBride, Norwich Technologies. And just really briefly, we're really blessed to have a group of 8 to 9 local Vermont solar options here. And no matter which one you choose, I strongly encourage you to go solar. You are reducing our energy dependence on foreign fossil fuels. You are cleaning the environment. You are supporting local jobs. You're supporting Vermont jobs. And finally, no matter which option you choose along here, you're saving money. And so it's a real win-win-win. And so we need all of you to go solar in order to meet the aggressive clean energy goals so we can have a clean energy future. Norwich Technologies, we're just down the road. We recently did the Thetford Elementary School project. And so we're proud to use many local contractors as well. The clearing and site prep work, excavation work was all done by Northwoods, Tim Ullman and his crew right here in Thetford. The electrical contracting was through Tilden Electric, which is right in Fairleigh. And so it really does support the local Vermont economy. And these local tradesmen do an excellent job. We're local, just down the road. A lot of great Dartmouth and local engineers and local technicians. And so I encourage you to take action this year.
Thanks.
Thanks, Troy. That was a great general spiel for solar. Appreciate that. My name is Bill Bender from Solaflect Energy. We're a solar technology company based here in the Upper Valley. We build and install suspension PV trackers. We have about 20 Thetford customers, so you may have seen our trackers around town, and we have many more in the surrounding communities as well. The tractor saves about 1,200 pounds of steel compared to traditional designs. And in the design that we spent 5 years of R&D that's supported by 2 different $1 million awards from the U.S. Department of Energy for material savings. So when you track the sun, you save about, you get about 40% more energy by doing that. And tracking, if you think solar is a good thing, tracking is also the most grid friendly, especially as we get more and more solar. Going up, the peak on the New England grid is in July and August, and it's almost always late afternoon or sometimes early evening. And that's when the sun's setting on fixed panels, but the tracker is still just about 100% of power, so it's really friendly for the grid peaks. So we work really hard to keep happy customers, so I encourage you to talk to some of your friends and neighbors that have our trackers right here in Thetford. There's several things that we do that are unique. First of all, we have pretty cool technology. I mentioned that. Second, I think we're developing technology here tonight that actually has upgrade potential, and it's something we're really excited about, and happy to talk in more detail about that. Third, we sell a tracker, whether it's in your yard or community solar. We have one we completed last fall, and it's a complete unit, so you literally can pick it up and move it. If you move and you want to install it, you could, in change its location. You can take it out of the community solar park, it's yours. Another thing that the trackers are really good at is snow, and I think in February, we had about 1/12 of annual production in February, so that was a really cold, snowy month, and we compare our production to anybody for that month. It was really excellent, and snowed 15 days in February. And finally, we totally agree with Catamount. I'm glad they're on the same page. That in our community solar parks, we do not sell renewable energy certificates, so you're legally completely 100% solar if you go solar with Solaflect. So we look forward to a chance to meet and discuss community solar more. And just the last thing is we still have 2 trackers that are available that are grandfathered at the 2014 6-cent solar adder. So if anyone is interested in that, you just raise your hand quickly.
Thanks, Bill.
Great. Hi, I'm Peter Thurl. I'm from way down south in Westminster. I started Vermont Community Solar 2 years ago. In the last 2 years, we've built 5 different community solar projects. Built and sold out all those projects in southern Vermont. Things that we do that are a little different. One of them is that in our model, you actually own the physical panels in the field. And that lets you qualify for the 30% federal tax credit. But more importantly to us, what it does is it keeps the financing of the whole project local, as well as building, owning, all the other attributes that everybody else has. In virtually all the other models that are being presented here, if there are investors involved who are taking the tax credits in any kind of a leasing situation, that money's going out of state virtually every time. So what we're trying to do, is keep the money local in our local economy, as well as maintaining all of the building attributes. And we have our own construction crew, so we're paying people to build stuff in the local economy. We're a little bit different about the RECs. We figure that thinking can come down on both sides of that question, and ours does a lot. So in the end, the thing about the RECs is that they're valuable, but in order to actually sell them, you have to get the amount of RECs that you generate and verify. And getting RECs verified costs money, and it usually costs a fixed amount per system per quarter. And what it means is that if you buy panels and put them on your own house and put a tracker on your own house, the RECs that it'll generate won't be as valuable as the amount of money that it would cost you to sell. In a community solar array, when the whole system is owned in one place, it generates enough RECs that they are valuable to sell. And we sell the RECs that are generated by our community solar to lower the price that people can buy into the community solar. But again, one of the beauties of net metering is that if you want to buy into community solar and you want to retain your RECs, you can. You'll pay $1 a watt more, which is what we consider the value, the ultimate value of the RECs is. That's how much we're able to lower the price by selling. So we'll either sell them and lower the price to you, or not sell them and let you keep the RECs at a $5 a watt price instead of a $4 a watt price. One thing that hasn't been mentioned here is that if you think solar is a good, I'll talk faster. If you think solar is a really good deal for a resident, you ought to see what it is for a business. Because a business can depreciate the panels, and they also qualify for Vermont state 7.2% tax credit. So businesses are running more than a 20% return on their investment. We've sold between 1/3 and 1/2 of the panels in our solar fields to businesses. We just sold half the fields to Brattleboro Savings and Loan down in Brattleboro. And we build ours on manually seasonally adjustable trackers, so that by hand we just tilt them up in the summer, catch more sun, and in the winter we tilt them down and the snow slides off. But you don't have any electronic moving parts to break down the road. So, yeah, happy to talk with anybody, answer questions. We've probably done more, at least of the ownership model share that. We've worked with Bruce in helping him develop his business model and are working with other people in other parts of the state to develop a similar model. Bruce?
I love that.
Nice.
Musical in. Well, thanks, Peter. Again, we are fortunate to have a broad range of perspectives and approaches and to allow people to make choices. And thank you for presenting another one.
Thanks, Mike. My colleague was supposed to be here. I had to change the name last minute. So that's why it's been promised I'm an expert. I want to repeat what you said. I'm so excited to have everybody here, because everybody in this room and all these developers here are really helping make the world a better place with more solar. So I'll give you a brief overview of SunCommon and who we are and what we do and why we do it, and then how our community solar program fits into that. So we started under the belief that everybody has the right to a healthy environment and a safer world, and clean energy is where that starts. So we're tearing down the barriers to renewable energy. Power from the sun can heat our homes and fuel our cars and power our lives. So we want to make that easier and more affordable for all Vermonters to be able to use it. So we started doing residential solar at no upfront cost because we found one of the biggest barriers to going solar was the fact that folks just couldn't pay to put the stuff up on their roof. And that program worked out really well, and we did 1,200 systems, just north of 1,200 systems already across the state, which is really exciting. So folks in that program, they're not paying their electricity bill. Instead, they're spending something similar to what they used to pay on their electric bill to pay down a monthly payment for their panels. Once they pay off that loan, they're all set and they're done. As we were going along with that program, though, almost half the people that were raising their hands saying, hey, we're interested, you want to check this out, their homes didn't work for solar for one reason or another, as Bob went over earlier. So we set up our community solar array program. So with that, you aren't paying your electric bill anymore. You buy a membership into one of our CSAs, community solar arrays. And that membership, you get a certain percentage of the power that's created or that's generated by a community solar array. So the CSA generates power, and the utility buys that power in return for solar credits that we've been talking about tonight. And those solar credits, if you're a member, get applied to your bill. If you have a 2% share, then 2% of the credits will get applied to your bill. And if you have a larger house with an electric car and a heat pump and 8 kids, I'm sorry, but you might get a 7 or 8% share, depending on what your needs are. So what we'll do is we'll check out all your options. Maybe an option on your home would work best. Maybe a community solar membership would work best. But that's the way that would work. With our CSAs, with those memberships, the SunCommon maintains ownership of the array. So you sign up for a 20-year membership, and you don't own the panels. So we keep everything maintained. We keep that relationship with the landowner, and you'd be able to, after 20 years, you'd be able to sign up again if you wanted to. You wouldn't own any of the panels. If you wanted to get out before 20 years, you could. There's an administrative fee that comes along with that, but there is an exit strategy. And the last thing I'll say is that, yeah, we're looking for the best places to put these. So if you guys have 1 to 2 clear acres, and you're thinking of, maybe developing that into solar or helping out your friends and neighbors, we can help you do that, along with all these other great folks.
Which is really amazing to me, this table of good folks. And so I Dory Wolfe, co-founder of Grow Solar back in '98, and when I left in 2010, I said, what should I do, and I just couldn't do anything but renewable. So I'm now developing community solar arrays. The niche that I'm excited about is businesses can get a great return, residences can get a great return on investment, but and some schools go ahead and invest themselves like Thetford, and that's great, but usually towns, nonprofits, they don't get the tax credit, so it makes it very difficult to invest in the solar array. And so doing community solar with that niche is very exciting to me. And so proud to say that we have Stratford Array that's going to be locally owned and operated, that is going to power, it's 100 kilowatt array, it's going to power the town, the school, and 3 of the nonprofits in Stratford. So very exciting. And so same thing, if you have land, that is the key, is looking for good land. And then also, I am an independent sales rep for Clean Energy Collective, a company that I remember, was it 2-3 years ago, talking to Thetford residents saying, community solar, anybody interested in trade interest? These guys were the beginnings to make it easy. Go online, click here, and you'll have panels like that. So they have 75 kilowatts in Green Mountain territory, ready to go, that's being built this spring. So it is easy if you wanted to just say, actually, this is the best way to do this is say, I'd actually like to donate to my local nonprofit panel. You can do it in one panel, 250 watts. It's the smallest at $3 a watt. You just go ahead, sign up for it, and then dedicate it to your favorite nonprofit. So your options are amazing, and as Troy said, just do it.
Hi, my name is Samantha Mashler. I'm here as a representative of the Vermont Law School Energy Clinic. I agree completely with everything that's been said on this panel so far. It's so amazing that we have a diversity of opinions, but still fundamentally that we really do have to increase the use of renewable energy. I think it's important to note that unfortunately, every single person in this room right now is consuming coal power. And just to give you an idea of exactly how much that is, in order to power a 100-watt light bulb, which nobody uses incandescents anymore, but if you did, for 1 year straight, it would take about just under 1/2 metric ton of coal. And so that every single person in this room can be part of the solution to eliminating this major social problem is a really important step forward. But the Energy Institute, or the Energy Clinic specifically, is a mission-based organization that provides informational and consulting services at no cost. So again, whereas I agree with everyone on this panel that we need more renewable energy, you can trust me a little bit more because I'm trying to tell you. Our mission is to ensure that there is more renewable energy in the state of Vermont that is installed in a manner that is as socially and environmentally beneficial as possible. That means community ownership, that means democratic management, that means retention of RECs and retirement rather than sale. However, as we've heard all these buzzwords being thrown around, certificate of public good, group net metering, which of course requires multilateral contracts or some sort of organizational entity such as an LLC, investment tax credits. Are you going to have a roof array or a ground array? Is your ground array going to be ballasted or is it going to be on racks? Right? These are very, very difficult things to decide, and the Energy Clinic exists to loan you the expertise of a number of students and staff members that want to help you do this in a manner that is as beneficial and equitable as possible.
Thanks, man. Thanks, everyone. So we have some time. It's 7:35 according to my clock, and until
About 8 and then.
yeah. So let's take about 20-25 minutes. General questions are best, things that we can all learn from each other. And I think if you say a question, I'll try to repeat it so the camera can hear it easily. And then we'll kind of see who would like to field it. That sound good, everybody? All right, a question in the back.
There was a mention made about business and commercial opportunities for investments, but what is there are different rates for commercial use and demand in particular. How are the dollars expressed for a business that might be on a G, I don't know what it is in Vermont, a G2 rate that pays more? Basically, they pay more for a higher usage, and I just wondered, do they get credits just the way a residential customer would get credit?
Yes, for any of these.
Can I summarize the question?
Can
Just
you
for the,
repeat the question?
To summarize or repeat the question, that a business or perhaps a different entity pay different rates for electricity. So if you are buying into an array, a shared array, and you have different people paying different rates, how do you get compensated for electricity that you're generating? And it looks like we have a couple of respondents up here. Do you want to go first, and then go on? Troy?
There are lots of different kinds of rates in Vermont for businesses. Most large businesses have what's called either a demand bill or a time of use bill. Because there was a lot of confusion about this exact issue, the legislature put specific language in that says that if anyone is on a demand meter or a time of use meter, they'll actually get credited at the highest residential rate plus the bonus act. So again, when I said think in terms of dollars, basically you have a certain number of dollars of your bill, and the solar field will generate a certain number of dollars of return to match your bill. There are a couple of cases where that's not true. There is one commercial rate, I think it's called rate 6, where instead of 14.7 cents, they pay 13.9 cents, and they only get a 13.9 cent to be credited at the highest residential rate plus the bonus.
The highest residential.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter. Troy, anything you want to add to that?
That was exactly it. So it's 14.7 cents plus 4.3 cents for anything over 50 kilowatts, so it's 19 cents. And then for residential, it's 14.7 plus 5.3, so 20 cents.
Okay.
Please. Just one caveat from it. We're all for businesses going solar, absolutely, but not dramatically better than residential. And the reason to be careful of if you're a profit-making business, if you go solar at your house, it's a non-taxable return because you're lowering your expenses and you're not increasing your income. If you go solar as a business, you have these investment tax credits and extra incentives, but you're lowering your expenses, which is increasing your profit, and so some of that is actually taxable. So that actually is kind of a wash with some of the investment tax credits and whatnot. So you're still, going solar residentially is a good financial deal. Going solar for business is a good financial deal. But just be aware that to properly calculate your return, you have to consider the taxation of that stream of electricity.
Plenty of tax accountants at Vermont Law
Local jobs.
That's right.
Other questions out there? I do have one that I was hoping to pose. Cost of entry. We mentioned that leasing is certainly an option to get in if you don't have a lot of upfront cash. If you'd like to buy in, do community owned arrays make it possible to buy in? So that if I had only $1,000 that I might be able to invest in solar, could I be a solar owner for $1,000 in any of our schemes?
Yes. That's our minimum, it's $1,000.
And we're at 750.
And the bidding is
So. That's great.
And from a purely community-owned standpoint, so again, if you just go with, if you just hire an engineering and construction firm to put an array that is actually owned and managed by the community members themselves, there are a number of financing options available through Vermont cooperative banks and things like that. This has actually become sort of a niche field in financing.
Mike, there's another item.
I just wanted to add one thing. There was a slide earlier called participation options, and it's related to what was just being discussed, and that was, I think there were 3 listed: owning, leasing, and hosting. And I just wanted to add that when you get up into the larger systems for large institutional off-takers like we do, the participation option is actually it's none of those 3. It's a 4th one called basically a service contract. It's not a lease. There's no upfront investment. There's no ownership. Hosting, in terms of leasing a site for the array, can be an entirely different transaction. But the way that we approach participation with our institutional off-takers is basically through a service agreement.
Meaning a power purchase agreement?
No, it's an agreement it's not a PPA, not a power purchase agreement. It's simply an agreement to participate in the group net metering reap the benefit of a discount. In other words, save a percentage of the net metering credits that are generated, and do it, for typically a 20-year period.
Thanks, Rob. Question in the back.
I have a question. Is there a minimum size you need to do a community array?
The question is there a minimum size for a community array? And yeah, go ahead.
I can answer that. We're working with a group out of Berkshire that's considering doing a community array that might be, they don't have all their group members, but it might be 20 to 30 kW. We've worked with groups of neighbors that have put in 10 to 15 kW and are sharing the power. The issue is around scale and cost of installation. The larger the installation, it drives the increased scale drives the cost per watt to install it down. And something I realized I didn't mention when I was talking about our interest in working with community groups is that's working directly with a group of community members with an installer. That's probably going to be the best cost per watt that you're going to be able to get people. And if you can get to scale up to 100, 150 kW, possibly bigger, the cost is only going to be more beneficial for the participants.
Mike, just mention here that I will. I'll mention that there's a community project going in a couple of weeks. The Catamount Solar is doing on the roof of the church in North Thetford, and the church is hosting about 15 kilowatts. We'll take about half of it, and so I and 4 other families have bought parts of the other half. Some people are here tonight, and so that's a small community array. Fortunately, we were able to get some help from a grant that was available last year from the state for churches and Thetford Elementary School, other groups that don't pay taxes. So that kept us in the affordable range for a small community array.
How does someone go about selling if they buy into a community thing and have to move out of state or something? How do you, get out of the deal?
Sure. The question is, the question was if you participate in an array and then it's time to leave, you move or something else happens in your life, how do you get out? And it sounds like there's lots of answers.
So if you, there are a lot of options. So if you move within Green Mountain Power territory, you're community solar. It obviously depends upon which structure you have. But you can just get it applied to a new meter. If you move out of state with our system, or if you move to a farm with our system, you can pick it up and move it there. If you move out of state, you can either sell it, it's personal property, you can sell it to a neighbor or someone else. And probably the recommended way is to sell it with your house. And there's actually really good data that you get your money back and then some, usually when you do that. And we've had real estate transactions and people just put their $5 electric bill on the kitchen counter, and it's really effective selling your house. So that extra value gets added in because when they go to the bank for a loan or whatever, their expenses are lower.
I'll bounce back and forth. That's right.
Green Mountain Community Solar, we have a buyout option. So you give us notice in 30 days to buy your panels back from you.
And that buyback is at purchase price?
It's at purchase price less the investment tax credit. So what we look is at the future value of what that panel would generate, and then we bring that back to today and we pay you for that value. So we try and balance out what your future value would be. So you.
Just really a more generalized answer is it's in your service contract. The exact method by which you transfer your ownership is there's any number of ways that it can be accomplished, but it's in your service contract. Vermont Law School recently published a guidance document which really provides us some insights into the vocabulary and the process. We have the 7 steps to community solar, which is available out in this foray. And we have model transactional documents, which includes a group net metering agreement, which allows essentially an option where the group itself can has a revocable option to purchase your power if you choose to move, but otherwise it can be sold with your home or to your neighbor or however.
Yeah, I would just say for our community solar arrays at SunCommon, if you move within GMP territory, like Bill said, you're able to keep those credits on your bill. If you do need to get out, you pay 3 months of an administrative fee, and then you can just head out of the array. So 3 months of what you otherwise wouldn't pay, and we'll cycle.
And just so you all know, all the questions that are up there are the same ones that are in your booklets, and those were questions that were posed to the contractors, and that was one of the questions. So in the booklet should be a response from everybody in terms of how to deal with it.
Thanks, Bob.
So it'll be different depending on which system the community goes with. Everybody's going to have a...
Everybody has their own contract, right?
Yeah.
Follow-up question for Catamount. If you get a half a dozen 15 to 20 kilowatt arrays going, would that qualify for the economy of scale?
Not really, unfortunately. I mean, you might, it depends how far away they are from each other and if they can be built simultaneously or sequentially, but a scale is directly related to mobilization costs. And
but if they're close together?
You would get a little bit of, there would be some reduced costs, but not the same as if it was one single array with one interconnection point.
Scott, question behind you.
Is there...
Oh, sorry, right behind you. Said somebody else first.
How does an individual find out where there is a project that they would like to buy into?
Great question. The question was how can an individual find out where the projects are available that they might buy into?
See us after the...
As I said, that everyone here has a project that you can buy into. And everyone will be at the tables as soon as we wrap up here. So I think it'd be great to collect information if you're interested. And then I would guess to follow on to that, I think that it would be in the interest of the Energy Committee to kind of act as a continuing point of contact or clearinghouse for projects. So I think that we will end up trying to do that for everybody who's here and for other people who do want to try to offer that. So we try to answer that question for residents.
Yeah, it's also very typical in these processes, especially if you want a larger group net metering array that's going to be a substantial installation. You go through a process that's known as a request for proposals, where you just publish, listen, we're looking for 500 kilowatts of solar, who's got it? And you essentially get bids, competitive bids for the various entities, including all of our prestigious installers and developers here, who have land, who want to develop it, and can, essentially offer a competitive price for that.
Follow on that, do you provide model bid specs to help people put up those RFPs?
We have not, but we can, because we have just actually, you'll have to forgive sort of the infancy of the program, because it was just launched in August, and we have already, really put together some really fantastic model documents and transaction materials. But we have just developed a request for proposals for the law school itself for 500 kilowatts of solar, where the recs are bundled and retained. And so we've gone through that process. Once that process is closed, currently it's confidential because it's proprietary to the law school, but once that process is closed, then it will be available as a model document.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to add that we're all Vermont companies and we don't bite. So if you have some land that you're interested in hosting, for your a small group for your friends and neighbors, or a larger group for the greater community, gosh, we're all here right now. What a better time to just make the round around the foyer outside and just ask us about hey, I've got this land, I think I want to check it out, and each one of us would be happy to sort of talk to you about what our different programs are and come out and move.
And to that point, I'd like to address, if I host a community array on my property, what compensation do I receive? And there's a running gag in law school that the answer to every legal question is, it depends, right? There are a number of models that vary in sort of based on the property owner's needs. If they want a lease payment, you can certainly negotiate a lease payment. One really sort of standout model is one where So rather than having to purchase, doing a land lease where there is some sort of transaction of cost and payment, the lessor actually just gets 5% of the electrical output to offset against their power bill. So really, it comes in a million flavors. Community solar does, and it can really be designed exactly to your needs and to your capabilities.
Okay, a little more on
I
that.
just wanted to throw in one more thing. There was a gentleman who asked about model bid specs. And I wanted to say that just something that I'm aware of, because it's in our part of the market, is that the VSA, the Vermont Superintendents Association, for the past, 6 to 9 months, with a consortium of schools and supervisory unions, has been working out a model group net metering contract and model RFP formats, proposal evaluation criteria, and so forth, to help individual schools and SUs to issue RFPs in order to procure net metering credit solar. So if you contact them, they have, I don't think they've formally launched it yet, but it could be like literally this week. Someone here may know, but it's just about to be released publicly, and I'm sure that they would share it with anyone who's interested.
Yeah, the publicly available Vermont Law School materials include a group net metering agreement, an LLC organizational bylaw agreement for a member-managed LLC, model land lease document, and guidance materials as just sort of, seeing where all these moving pieces sort of fit together.
Great. I think we have time for one more. Any questions? Do you yield the floor? Two more then. Sorry, two hands are in the air. Go ahead.
I'm a little bit confused. I'm
That means
trying
you
to
get what's
figure
going on.
out, are you hoping that maybe we would buy into one of these?
Not me.
Or we could organize with our neighbors, or the Energy Committee would come up with something
Yes.
what's the next step?
Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
What's the idea?
Yeah, I will come back to repeat that question. What are the points of view here? Is this presentation towards an individual homeowner or family member who might want to buy in? Is it to try to support the Energy Committee of the town in having a community array? Is it to have somebody say, hey, I could be participating, let me gather up some people who will be the community? And the answer, which I heard, was yes, it's all those perspectives are viable and valuable. And so this group is trying to talk toward all of them.
And maybe I could just, we didn't really talk much about, what is the town planning on doing. We've been working with the select board to look at a couple of different pieces of property. One is the former landfill in Post Mills. We're looking at possibly doing a community array there. And the other one is we've been talking with the Thetford Elementary School Board about possibly expanding on the site that's already there. There's a fair amount of work before us to do either or possibly both of those. It's possible that the one at the school might be another 350 kilowatt size. The one at the landfill would probably be 150 kilowatts, so that would be about 500 kilowatts altogether. The town uses about 30 kilowatts, so there might be a sizable amount that would be open to residents from the town buying into. But we have an amount of work to go, so it's going to be a while before either of those two would be ready for people to buy into. But part of what we wanted to do through this process was to get some sense of who might be interested in participating when we get to that stage. That said, there are folks here who have projects that are ongoing, ready to jump into right now. I don't really think, we're not being competitive with them in terms of having to hold on for us. If there's something out there that you like right now, go for it. If you're not ready yet or you want to wait for us, I sincerely think we're going to have something done, in the next year or so.
There's something. Got to choose between two questions. There's only time for one. So let me go to Bill, and then I hope that you
This is very easy. From a design, from a construction standpoint, and is there such thing as an array that's designed for expansion that doesn't also give up a lot of the savings of like the stage one investors? And I'm thinking of a town that may want to get into it for its own town buildings, but then as people see how well it works, more subscribers come on, and more than you would warrant installing to begin with. And I just wonder the switchgear and all the stuff that you have to do, and you get my tip.
I think I can summarize that as, is it worthwhile or possible, is it possible and or worthwhile to build an expandable array? So if the town wants to build some smaller array now and has a few shared people, but then more people want to come in, can you add on in any cost effective kind of way?
The economics of it is, I know technically can be done, but I just wanted to throw away a lot of stuff that you started.
Quickly, there are ways that you can plan ahead for expansion, but you would be probably forcing some of those costs onto the initial people that were doing it. It's always better to build for scale from the beginning if you can.
This is a real changing climate.
One thing I'll mention is that there's only 18 months left with the federal tax credit, and whether you do a leasing option, whether you buy it yourself, that federal tax credit is 30% of the price of the system, and that's going to be built into the system. So, built into the price wherever it comes out. So, for you to take a look at your friends, seeing how they do it, seeing if it works for them, your window on that savings, which is pretty huge from Uncle Sam, is getting smaller. So, and every system is going to be different. Every one of us, for every one of our systems, no two are the same. It's all custom jobs because everything, every home is different, every large array is different. So I would say if rather than expanding later, that federal tax credit piece is something you should think about as you're implementing that.
Thank you, Ed. Let's head out to the lobby, say grab that.
I want to thank everybody. More talk and food and drink out there.
If I knew that it would guarantee that we'd be around at the end of the life of the project, I would have certainly done it sooner.
Yeah, and it's streamed. We're streaming live now, and it's streamed. And the battery just died for round 2 of the recording, and she's been going with the stream. So we should have plenty of footage. Curious to see what happens. Yep. Oh. Is it at the church in the...
Yeah, at the church, Unitarian Church.
Yep.
One of the vendors was wood pellets. Building energy was there.
Yep.
It was all quite interesting. And what I decided after that was I want to get better connected with Mcallister. What's going on up there?
Yep.
There's so much going on up there. And I saw one of your email notes. You have 350 friends up there?
350 Vermont?
Yeah. Is that something I should join?
Just get on an email list and at least know what's going on, around around the state when it comes to the topics that they're talking about, like the mass market zoning.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Well, thanks for checking in, everybody, and I hope that was interesting on some level. I think we'll have the video up on my website at www.bobthegreenguy.com. It's going to be a few days before I can get this thing posted for technical reasons, but so I've got footage that I've streamed here, and I've got footage that I recorded on a just an inexpensive video camera, and then I actually hired someone to come, a professional came and recorded the whole event for us. So I'm looking forward to see what Emily has up her sleeve, so that'll be fun. It was a good turnout. I was amazed at how many people, when asked how many people here were interested in participating in community solar, the majority of hands went up. So that was really exciting. You know, we can't go fast enough as far as I'm concerned when it comes to getting these renewable energy projects up and running. And with the tax credits ending soon, and I don't see that changing nationally, I don't see anything coming down the pipe. So let's hope that we can wrap up the tax credits in the next 16 or so months and take advantage of that. And so tune in at www.bobthegreenguy.com and check in there for updates of the footage from tonight's event. If you have any questions, you can email me directly. Just send it to bob@bobthegreenguy.com, and I will do my best to answer it myself or find somebody who knows the answer if I don't know it. So if you have any specific questions right now, feel free to text in the section below and right down there, and I'll see what I can do to answer your questions. I think we'll go out now to the common area where everybody's getting together and eating cookies, and that's what we do here in Vermont, and see what's going on out there. So if you want to join along, feel free. Here we go.
They may have it's on, I think it gives, well, no, it doesn't have the link there. But if you sign up out there, I'll send you the link.
I'll see you out here. Okay.
Okay. Talk to David. Definitely come and talk to us.
So here's where we are at Thetford Academy.
Right, because how many hours are there here? And it's still like, it's a 1 kilowatt is the maximum amount you'll get out of any time, but you multiply that by hours.
Good to see you. And just show you the table of food. So let's set up over here.
You would get about 1,200 kilowatt hours.
Just the bathroom. But don't forget, you gotta review them.
Or you can do this is like
You have a little more.
Hey, good, how are you? Good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
So I'm recording, or actually I'm streaming live right now. And so there you are. You are now streaming live on Twitter.
Okay.